Today's story, The Closing Hour. For the best experience, we recommend dimming your room lights.
It's been over 20 years since I last visited this town with my mom. As a child, I came here every summer to see my grandparents. I knew every street and shop. I was in college when my grandfather passed. I couldn't attend his funeral. After my parents died, my grandmother lived here alone until her late 80s. Last week, I received a letter about her passing. I came to visit her house one last time. The rain had just begun when I stepped off the bus and looked up at the old stone building. A surge of familiarity and nostalgia swept over me. It was the town library. I crossed the not-so-busy road, shielding my head from the rain with the book. The library looked just as I remembered it. Well, almost. Rumors about the place had always lingered in the air. Whispers of the Great Fire in the 70s that had consumed the original structure, trapping dozens inside. The new building stood on the same ashes, rebuilt with pride and denial. My grandmother used to say that the library wasn't quite right after dusk. The sign outside read, in polite, fading letters, "Library hours, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Closed after hours." I tucked the book tighter under my arm, a worn, cloth-bound volume titled Fahrenheit for 51, Ray Bradbury, 1953. This was the last book my grandmother borrowed. Her name was still faint but legible on the library's old checkout card on the back page. She borrowed it a couple of months before she died. The date on the checkout card said the 26th of July. When I found this among her things, I knew that I had to return it. Someone else deserved to read the book, too. Inside, the library was warm and strangely alive, the faint hum of whispers, the scent of paper and varnish, the creak of wood. Rows of shelves stretched like corridors into the dimness. The librarian, an elderly man with round glasses, smiled when I approached the counter.
"Returning or borrowing?"
"Returning," I said, setting the book down gently. This was my grandmother's. She had borrowed it a long time ago. The man ran a finger along the card.
"We remember our patrons here.
He stamped the card with a soft thud.
You're welcome to stay and read a while. We still have her records, you know."
He then looked over his glasses and then darted a meaningful glance at the giant clock over the counter and said,
"But don't be late. We close at 5 p.m.
There was something in his words I failed to understand at the time. I nodded, distracted. It was only for 15 p.m. There was already a strange restlessness among the readers. Some were returning the books to the stands, some tucking their notebooks inside their bags, and some were queuing up at the counter to borrow or return books. I no longer visit libraries back in my city, so this felt different. I wanted to spend some time here, pick up a book from the aisle and sit at one of these wooden desks reading it. I wandered to the history section across the west wing, fingers grazing the spines. I found an Old Town Chronicle, sat by the window, and began to read. The pages turned easily, the stories of the town flowing back to me. The industries that died, the people that didn't leave, the fire that took the library and those inside. I remember glancing at the memorial alcove on my way to this section. Time slipped. When I looked up again, the light had changed. The window reflected my face, and behind me, the golden glow of lamps hanging from the tall ceiling cast a strange halo. I glanced at my watch, 6:42 p.m. Panic flickered in my chest. The library should have been closed. Yet, oddly, it wasn't empty. There were people, dozens of them. A lady in a floral dress pushed a pram past me, humming softly. A group of men whispered near the archives. Somewhere deeper in the stacks, a child laughed, high and thin. The sense of urgency that I had seen earlier was somehow replaced by a mantle of unrushed composure, masking something deeper, something waiting. I rose, uneasy. "Excuse me," I called out softly to the lady. "Isn't it after hours?" She turned, smiling. Her face was calm, kind, and disturbingly familiar.
The library stays open for those who need it.
There was a pram next to her. When she turned, the pram suddenly wobbled, the front wheel slipping on the ramp. Within seconds, the pram picked up pace and started to hurtle forward along the slope of the ramp. I lunged forward to grab it. I ran a few steps ahead and caught the pram, steadied it before it could roll down further. The lady walked up behind me, gratitude shining in her eyes.
"Thank you, Daniel. You're a good man,"
she said, her voice soft. I smiled awkwardly. "You're welcome." Just then, I felt a pang in my stomach. She knew my name. But how on earth, before I could ask, she wheeled away. Is that why her face looks familiar? Do I know her somehow? With possibilities running through my mind, I made my way to the counter to check out of the library. I thought it would help if I asked the elderly man I had met at the counter earlier. But he was gone. A young woman stood in his place, hair neatly tied, her expression distant. "Sorry," I began. "Where's the gentleman who was here before?" The woman looked up slowly, her voice cool.
"Shift changes after 5.
The stamp came down sharply on the book, echoing through the hall. There was something about her eyes, pale grey, almost milky, that felt unsettling. Unwelcoming. I swallowed. Right. Of course. I wanted to point out that the sign outside mentions, "Closed after hours," and yet the library is still open. But something made me think that it was best to leave it at that. I turned to leave. The light seemed dimmer now, the air thicker. As I passed through the aisles, I felt it. The eyes. Every person, every silent reader, every frozen smile following my movement. I walked faster. At the door, I glanced back one last time. The lady with the pram was standing in the aisle, watching me. Her baby, I noticed now, was unnaturally still. I pushed through the doors into the night, breathing hard. The rain has stopped, but the streets are empty. The library loomed behind me, its windows glowing faintly, as though 100 candles were burning inside. Halfway home, I stopped under a flickering streetlight. The unease wouldn't leave me. The lady's face, I have seen it before, years ago. Then it struck me. In the library's west wing, there was a small memorial alcove, the Hall of Remembrance. Framed photographs of the fire's victims lined the wall. My grandmother used to stand there, tracing their name with her finger and probably touching her cross to breathe a prayer. I could see it clearly now. The lady with the pram. The librarian. Even the laughing child from the stacks. All of them, every single one, they had died in the fire, being trapped inside, way back in the 70s. My breath came shallow. My hand trembled. I looked down at the book I carried, the librarian stamp wet and glistening red in the light. I noticed the title embossed in faded gold, Fahrenheit for 51, Ray Bradbury, 1953. Somehow, this book came back with me. Although I clearly remember giving it back to the librarian when I entered, it was at that moment that I realized this book must have escaped the fire of the 70s. Maybe it was with my grandmother at that time. And maybe she had meant to keep it as a souvenir from before the fire. Or maybe the book came back with her each time she wanted to return it, just like it did now. I hadn't noticed the year on the checkout card. It was the 26th of July, 1971. It was ironic that a book about burning books was saved from being burned, and it didn't want to go back to the library ever since. The drizzling started again. From far behind me, through the whispering raindrops, the library bell tolled once, slow and hollow, as if marking a return long overdue.
If you like this story, please do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more.